Hi guys, so this is just a quick explanation of some of the more general points when it comes to you playing as a croupier or working as a croupier for us on the casino fun night. All right, just to sort of just get things to move as smoothly as possible. So the way it's going to work is every person who comes on that evening is going to get a initial check, which is going to look like this. This initial check will have their name on it. It will have their initial betting value that's been given to them of £1,000, and it will also be signed most likely by me, unless it is my check, in which case I will get it signed by somebody else to make sure there's nothing dodgy going as far as that is concerned. So that is what they will receive. The way that generally the game is going to work is they will come up to you and they will give you the check that they have got, which may be £1,000 if it's the start of the night. It may be a lower value if they've been playing elsewhere and losing or winning money. It may be more or anything along those sorts of lines. Just to quickly note though that when it comes to a check, it will only ever have one value on it when you receive it off them. It should be signed and it should also have their name on it, and you should be happy that that generally is the person whose check it is. All right. If at any point you are questioning whether that's the situation, then you can take that check off them. Unfortunately, it needs to be destroyed, and they will then start with 250. Okay, because if at any point you think there's something a bit funny, then they unfortunately start at 250. All right, be a bit reasonable about it, but if there's clear that somebody's been fiddling with things, they've been changing values, anything like that, then they may have been messing with the check, in which case then they unfortunately drop down to the rebuy value of 250. Hopefully that's not going to happen. So hopefully you're going to receive a check which will have one value on it, a signature on it, and that person's name on it as well. When they come up to you, then you will take that check off them, and you will place it in front of you as a croupier as they sit down. Now, when it comes to this check, what this check can be used as is it can be used essentially as a notepad, because you're not going to be giving this check back to them again. All right, you are going to, when they leave the table, they are going to get a new check. Also, when they leave the table, they are not going to be taking any chips with them. The chips stay on the table, and they take the check with the new value of where they're at to whichever table they want to go to next. Main reason for that being that we haven't then got chips moving around the room, which ultimately means that they could get dropped, they could get lost, they could accidentally be put in people's pockets as they're moving from one table to another and then potentially taken home with them, and those sorts of things. So hopefully this will minimise the chances of chips being lost, because obviously these sets of chips have been kindly offered out by members of the admin team to use for the night. So you'll receive the check from the person, make sure that you're happy with it, that it's got one value on it, one signature, that person's name, etc., and you put it in front of you. Then what you'll do is you will give them chips that are appropriate to that game. Now, if you are running Texas Hold'em, if you're running Casino Hold'em, or if you are running Blackjack, then generally speaking, you will give them as close to or exactly the amount that is on their check that they've got. So in this case here, person starting with £1,000, you might decide you would give them, if you're on Blackjack, you would give them £1,000 worth of chips. It's up to you to manage the chips on your table in terms of sorting out the chips. What I would recommend when it comes to chips is that either they sit in the tray that you've got them in, or you can create them into stacks as well. Now, a couple of little things that are quite handy to bear in mind when it comes to managing chips is sometimes, especially if you're trying to count out 20, 30 of them, things like that, sometimes it can take a little while to do that. What you can do though is you can do stacks of 5, for example, or you could do stacks of 10, like that, for example, and make sure you've got a stack of 5 or a stack of 10. Once you've got those, a very easy way of creating multiple stacks then at that point is to take some more of those chips, sit them next to it, carefully slide your finger across them, make sure that they are still level, and that's going to be the same stack of chips. That's a stack of 5. That I can feel is a stack of 5, and so on and so forth. You can do it with the 5s that you've got. So you could do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 initial stack of 10 that you've got there. And then you can then stack those into 10. So same rule, pick what you think is more than that size of stack, draw your finger across, just check their level. And that's a very quick way of counting your chips rather than having to laboriously count them one at a time as you're going along. So that's just a little tip for you in terms of managing your chips. And if you keep your chips managed, it'll make things a little bit easier in terms of handing chips out to people and getting chips back. But let's say, for example, and I'm not going to count this out, let's say, for example, this person's brought me this £1,000 check. Let's pretend that I have given them, I don't know, let's pretend I've given them £800 worth of chips. I've given them £800 worth of chips. So all you do is you take the check, you cross out the value, and you make it clear to yourself what their new value of what is left is on the check. So you've given them 800, they had 1,000, so they've got £800 worth of chips, they've got £200 left on the check. That's all you have to do with that check at that moment in time, and then you can play the games as per the other videos that I've explained. Sometimes you might find in certain games that you've not been able to give them the chips that they are supposed to have. So for example, if you're playing blackjack, let's say a person has gone and put in 15 in on as their bet, and they win with a blackjack. Now, if you win with a blackjack, that is an odds of 3 to 2, which is essentially 1.5 times what they've bet. Now, you can give them the 1 quite easily. That's 1. And then you've got the half. So half of a stack is half of 15, so that's 7.5. You can give them a 5, but you can't give them the other 250 because there isn't a 250 chip to be able to do. If that's the situation, what you don't give them, so you're giving them most of it, but you're short £2.50, what you can do is you can change the value on the check to allow for the £2.50, like so. All right, you can use the back of the check, you can do the front of the check. Just make sure you always cross out the previous value, so you've only ever got one value written on there, so you know what, in addition to what they've got over here, you know what they've actually got. All right, that's how you play it as you're going along. Now, let's say, for example, that person bankrupts. All right, and when I say bankrupts, that can either be that they are completely out of chips, or they are down to less than the minimum value of the bet that you're at. So the lowest amount you can bet on any game is 5. So let's say, for example, this person had managed to get all the way down to their £2.50 that they had there. So lost the other 200, for example, and they're down to their £2.50. In your game, say, for example, you are running, I don't know, any of them really, apart from Texas Hold'em. Let's say, for example, you're running Sickbo. Minimum bet is £5. You can't give them £5. They've only got £2.50. They've essentially bankrupt at that point. If they had £5 left, cross it out and give them just the 5. Let them play with that. Simple as that. But if they literally cannot play, then they get to start with a new 250. Now, the way that this works is if they want to continue playing at this table and there's nobody else waiting, then just give them another 250 and continue using the same check that you've got here. So let's say, for example, person's bankrupt out, they want to continue playing, there's nobody waiting for the seat that's sitting there, then let's say, for example, you gave them £200 worth of chips. Let's imagine that was 200. Then just change this, so they started off with another 250, so you've given them 200, so they've got 50 left. Okay, so you're just keeping track as you're going along in terms of what they've been given versus what they have. But whenever they start off again, they start off with 250, not 1,000. All right. Let's say, however, that they bankrupt out and there is somebody waiting to have a go on this game. To aid circulation of the games, to stop the same person sitting at the same table for long periods of time and other people not being able to get to the table, then what the requirement is somebody who's waiting gets their seat, which means that this person initially has to stand up. If that happens, you're going to need to give them a new check, because they always have to walk away from the table with a clean check with a value, one value, a signature, and the person's name on it. So if that's the case, if they're getting up and leaving, then what you will do is you will clearly rip that one up, put it away in a box which will be nearby to you, give them a new 250, that's if they're bankrupt, because that's what they'll start off with, 250, put their name on it, signature. I'll talk about signatures in a message to you. You don't have to put your own real signatures on, as long as you make one up that I know about, that's fine. And then they take that check away with them. If they want, they can then wait at that table to have a space come back up again, and they can sit back down at it again, and you can do the same thing again. Take the check off them, give them £250 worth of chips, cross it out, write the new value. So if you gave them everything, if you gave them the full 250, that would then say 0, because they've got £250 worth of chips in front of them. Then that's fine. All right. Now, let's say, for example, they decide to stop playing this game without actually busting. So you may, for example, they may have £50 sitting on this check, and they've got chips, which they may have won some more and things like that, and they decide to cash out. Again, they don't take the chips with them. Very important. Please make sure people don't take the chips away with them. All right. What you're going to do instead is you will count up what they've got. So 400, 200, 240. So let's say they had 240 left, and they had 50 on their check already. So they've got 290, 240 of chips, 50 of money. So they've got 290 sitting there. Again, they only walk away with a clean check. So 290. You start them with a new check with value, 290 on it. Again, signature. Again, name. Again, the old check you destroy, and you give them the new check to walk away with. Final thing just to mention is, actually another thing just to mention is shuffling. Okay, so if you're playing one of the games with cards, then you need to make sure that you shuffle the decks when you are playing the cards with that. Now, there's no hard and fast rule or setting anything from my perspective as to which type of shuffling you do. If you're just playing with single deck of cards, which you are with Casino Hold'em, then you can shuffle them as you wish. So if you like to do shuffles like this, or if you are a riffle shuffler or any other sort of fancy type of shuffling, then that's fine. As long as you are satisfied, you've shuffled it a few times so it's a nice clean deck, then that's absolutely fine. If, however, you don't feel comfortable with that type of shuffling, or in the case of blackjack where you've got 5 decks of cards together, in which case that type of shuffling is actually really hard to do to make sure everything's nicely shuffled up, then what you can do instead is what's called a casino wash. And it's called a casino wash because although it looks like a really amateur way of shuffling cards, it is actually the quickest, easiest way to make sure that your cards are randomised. And it's literally what it sounds like. You wash the table with them. So you just give them a good old shuffle like that. Just keep going until you're satisfied. Obviously, if you've got 5 decks of cards that you're using, you're going to want to do this longer. But with blackjack, once you've got 5 decks of cards in there, you're going to be doing this a lot less often than with things like Casino Hold'em. So just give them a good old shuffle, put them back together again. Like so. Don't rush, don't panic. And then once you've got them together, I would just give them another quick shuffle just in case anyone saw the bottom card there or anything like that. And that's fine. So as long as you're happy with how you've shuffled them, that's absolutely fine as well. The only other things that I would just ask is you'll know which games you're running on which times. If I could just ask, please, that you do your best to be at that game a minute or two before the time slot you're supposed to be running, so you can take over from the person that was running it before. If you are running the last session of the night, so the one that finishes at 10:30, so that's the 9:45 to 10:31, if you could make sure you set a timer or something on your watch or your phone or something like that for 10:30. When that alarm goes off, if you are in the middle of a round, finish that round, but then don't start any more rounds after that. Just remind your players at the table there as well, and I will probably do it as well, shout over everybody, that they've then got 10 minutes, if they haven't done so already, to put their final check, which you'll have given to them. They've got 10 minutes to put their final check into the ballot box, which will be near the front of the room. Any other questions or anything like that, feel free to just ask me at any time, even on the night or anything like that. Please don't worry about this. It's designed to be a bit of fun. If little mistakes get made, that's fine. As I've said in the paperwork, if you make a mistake during a game, if it can be easily rectified by just starting over, go for it. If that would be unfair to the player, then work in advantage of the player. And it's just a bit of fun. All right, so don't panic about it. Any problems, any questions, just ask me.